It's Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here, coming to you from San Diego, joined today by Dr. Michael McQuary. He is a trustee with the San Diego Unified School Board. So I want to speak with you, if we may, about education funding in our state. No doubt a lot better this year than 5 or 6 years ago. We're up about 55% from 2011-12. But is it enough?
No. Funding is going up. 1 out of 8 people live in the state of California. California has the 6th largest economy in the world. If it was a country, that would be 6th to China, the United States, Germany, and Japan.
Sure.
Great Britain and us, we kind of flip-flop, but right now we think, so we have money comes in through property tax, sales taxes, and then it goes, our taxes go to the state, and then they get redistributed for equity reasons across the state, so no matter where a child lives in which school district and throughout the state, they get the same funding. So we do have an...
Well, but let's talk about the equity questions, because I think you bring up a very good point. Under a proposal passed a few years by Governor Brown in the legislature, we have something called the local control funding formula. And under that formula, we really are changing the way we're funding public schools. It used to be, you know better than I, that there were a lot of categoricals and the state would kind of dictate where the money would go. Now there's more discretion, except for the fact that we have a base grant for all school districts, but additional money will flow if a school district has high numbers of English language learners, economically disadvantaged, or foster children.
Right.
So we've had LCFF for a couple of years now. What do you make of this revolution in education funding?
It's an improvement. It was something that Governor Jerry Brown put together with our state board president, Dr. Michael Kirst, in order to reduce some of the barriers, in order to give local school districts more control. That's why we call it local control funding formula, along with which does allow for districts to have more choices about where they spread their money, but they still have the obligation and the responsibility to equalize education for all children, no matter where they live within the district.
Now,
that's controlled by the local control
accountability plan, LCAP?
The LCAP, which requires school districts to sit down with all of their stakeholders, come up with goals and objectives and missions and activities which provide the guidance for the use of funds. And then we're held accountable. We've got a new dashboard was just released recently with new test scores. The colored dashboard, which is not the old is it API index? It's not the single measure, it's multiple measures, and maybe we could talk about that at another time. But we're doing quite well in terms of utilizing the money that we have, but we could do a lot better.
Let me ask you if I can dig deeper, because under LCFF, if a school district hits a certain threshold, I think it's 55%, where 55% of those students are ESL, economically disadvantaged, or foster, the bump jumps even greater. Does San Diego Unified hit that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So it's the concentration grants and the supplemental grants. So that where we have high numbers of low-income students, we get an additional boost, and where we have high concentration of those, we get additional funding for that as well. That allows us to, in San Diego, to reduce teacher-student ratios within our targeted schools, allows us to give greater wraparound services and additional support effort to those schools, additional counseling, additional administrative help and support and district office support.
I want to ask you though, because I wonder if the way the program is structured, if it kind of disincentivizes students from being classified as English language learners or English proficient. Because look, kids are sponges and they're going to pick up English really quickly, I believe. And so obvious economic disadvantage, that really won't change much. If you're a foster kid, you're a foster kid, although you could get adopted. But with English language learners, if you start to reclassify these kids out and call them English proficient, you may come up against that 55% number and lose your concentration grant.
Right. We have about 35% of our students are Spanish speakers. We have other languages, of course. We've got children who are born in 162 different countries of the United States. So we have one of the most diverse districts in the state. But our students who are English learners, that means they do not have proficiency in English, do need additional extra help. There is a reclassification process and a assessment, so it's not left up to the district to use some arbitrary
I see.
judgment. There is a test which is used, and so we take a look at our students who are English learners. We develop the language in
Right.
multiple different ways, in classroom support, some additional support outside, some resource people, teacher support, having our teachers better equipped to do ESL and to help students learn English and learn content in English. But we look at that reclassification as a significant indicator for a child being on track to graduate, and we want our students to be reclassified by the end of their 5th year. By 5th grade is where we want to make that adjustment. Of course, we have students who arrive at our schools in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and in high school. But we know that our English learners need additional help to get English. In addition, we want our Spanish speakers to get credit for the Spanish that they understand. So we can give them credit for their mastery of Spanish, and they can get college A to G fulfilled.
I want to ask you more about these students that are considered as part of these classified categories. We know that we have a new standardized test regime that has been put into place. Here in California, it's called the SBAC. It's part of the adoption of Common Core. And we have 2 years of results. And what we know is that we continue to see a significant achievement gap among students of Latino descent, among students of economic disadvantage, regardless of their ethnic background. It's pretty daunting. I mean, in English language skills, only 49% are meeting standards. But then when you look at Latino students, we're at 37%. When you look at economically disadvantaged, we're looking at 35%. And so I know that LCFF is new and we're still marching forward with it, but what do you make of the continued stubborn achievement gap?
Well, the achievement gap is a national need, and it's a statewide priority, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we provide those students with the skills necessary to achieve. Our graduation rates, we're on track to hitting highest ever in the history of San Diego at 92%.
And that's a statewide trend, thankfully.
We think it's nationally. Our students are doing better, but we set our standard at the University of California requirements, and that's 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of world language, plus a year of fine arts. And our Latino students are at 89%, only 3 points below, on target to be at 89.
I see.
And our African American students are at 91%, 1% below. So we in San Diego have significantly closed the achievement gap, and we'll have that validated within the next month or two.
We look at English language learners, and those numbers are particularly daunting because in English, for example, and I understand that if you're an English language learner, you may face challenges with standardized tests, but they're meeting standards at 13%, whereas even in math, they're meeting standards at 12%. I would think math would be transferable, but regardless of language acumen.
Well, a couple of things there. One is the way students are assessed, and you'll take a look at our dashboard. There are 5 areas that are assessed in a big way. It would be math and language arts, English learners, as well as suspensions and we want and graduation rates. So we're doing quite well with the We're doing quite well on 4 of the 5. So we're either meet standards, above standards, below standards. On 4 of the 5, we are above standards. The one where we have just met and we need more work are the English learners.
We'll have you back and talk more about it.
Absolutely.
His name is Dr. Michael McQuary. He is a trustee with the San Diego Unified School District. My name is Brad Pomerance in San Diego. It's Local Edition.